The desert was quiet that evening, too quiet even for the dying sun. Miles away from the nearest settlement, Elias Crane worked the dry rope of his old well, the creek echoing across the cracked earth. He lived alone on that patch of dust and wind, a man trying to bury the ghosts of war and whiskey. The world had taken enough from him, and the desert, in its cruel honesty, asked for nothing more. But that night, something stirred. A faint rustle broke through the silence, not the wind, not the shifting sand. Elias turned sharply, his hand instinctively finding the worn handle of his rifle. And then he saw her. She stumbled into the faint circle of his lantern's light, a young woman, thin as a reed, her skin the color of sunburned copper. Her dark hair clung to her face, tangled with sand and blood. The patterns of her torn dress told Elias who she was before she ever spoke. Apache. For a long moment, neither moved. She stood, swaying, eyes blazing with the instinct of a cornered animal. Elias felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears, the old training whispering that she was the enemy. But something else, something deeper, told him otherwise. Without a word, he stepped aside and lowered a tin cup into the well. The rope groaned, the bucket splashed, and the water shimmered like mercy itself. He set the cup on the edge of the well and backed away. The girl hesitated, watching him through lashes heavy with dust. Then, trembling, she reached out and drank. It wasn't gratitude that passed through her eyes, it was disbelief, as if kindness was something long forgotten in her world. When she collapsed, moments later, Elias caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was feverish, her pulse weak. He carried her to the porch, laid her on an old blanket, and stared at the stars above. He knew what harboring her meant. If settlers saw an Apache on his land, they'd call him a traitor. If the Apache found her here, they'd call him a kidnapper. Still, he sat beside her through the night, listening to her uneven breathing. When the morning came, he would find her gone, or so he hoped. But in the desert, nothing vanished without a consequence. As the first light crawled over the horizon, Elias noticed shapes on the ridge. 1, 2, 10. Then hundreds. Riders. Their spears glinted like the morning sun. The Apache had come. And Elias Crane, the man who only wanted peace, stood on the edge of a storm that would test everything he believed in. The morning wind carried the smell of dust and smoke. Elias stood motionless on his porch, eyes narrowing at the distant ridge. The shapes that had seemed like mirages at dawn were now clear, Apache warriors. At least 300 of them, mounted and silent, forming a wide half-circle around his ranch. Their faces were unreadable, their stillness more terrifying than any charge. Elias's fingers itched toward his rifle, but he stopped himself. He knew the futility of such a gesture. One wrong move, and the sky would rain arrows before he could even breathe. He lowered his hands slowly, making sure every movement was deliberate. The girl, the one he had saved, stirred behind him. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes half open, confusion clouding her gaze. Elias turned, kneeling beside her. "You need to stay calm," he said softly. "They're your people, aren't they?" Her lips moved, but the words came out in a whisper he couldn't understand. Still, the way she looked at the warriors told him everything. She recognized them, and they recognized her. The ground trembled as one of the riders broke from the formation and descended the ridge. His horse's hooves struck the dust like drums. He was older, his hair streaked with gray, his chest decorated with bones and feathers. His gaze fixed on Elias with the cold authority of a man who had buried more friends than enemies. When he reached the porch, he dismounted with quiet grace. He didn't speak. Instead, he looked down at the girl, then back at Elias. The silence between them was a blade, sharp, dangerous, and waiting for one of them to bleed. "I gave her water," Elias said finally. His voice steady, though his heart raced. "That's all." The warrior's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a slow nod, he turned and gestured to his men. None moved closer. None spoke. They simply stood there, watching, waiting. The message was clear. They would not kill him, not yet. He was being tested, though he didn't yet understand how. As the sun rose higher, Elias felt the weight of hundreds of eyes pressing down on him. He had survived wars, storms, and solitude, but this silence, this quiet judgment, was something else entirely. When night fell, the warriors were still there, their fires flickering on the horizon like stars born from the earth. Elias sat by his porch, unable to sleep, knowing that the desert had chosen him for something he wasn't ready to face. By the second dawn, Elias understood their intent. The Apache were not attacking, not retreating, they were watching. Every move he made, every sound, every glance toward the horizon was measured. He went about his day as if they weren't there, feeding the mule, tending the fence, drawing water from the well. But their eyes followed. And each time he looked up, he found their gaze steady and silent. At noon, he brought the girl a bowl of water and some bread. She sat propped against the wall, her strength returning little by little. Her name, he learned, was Naya when she spoke. Her voice carried both pride and fear, the strange mixture of someone torn between loyalty and uncertainty. "My father watches you," she said quietly, pointing toward the ridge. Elias followed her gesture and saw the elder warrior who had ridden down the day before. "He waits to see if your heart lies with peace or with blood." Elias smiled bitterly. Peace doesn't seem to have much land left to live on. Naya's gaze softened. Peace lives in the few who still believe it can. For a moment, the air between them felt lighter, almost human again. But then the wind shifted, and with it came a sound, the distant echo of horses. Elias froze. On the opposite side of the valley, a cloud of dust rose. Settlers armed, cautious, riding in formation. The timing couldn't have been worse. The Apache warriors noticed too. Their formation tightened. Spears lifted, bows drawn. The desert itself seemed to hold its breath. Elias's mind raced. If he went out to meet the settlers, the Apache might see it as betrayal. If he stayed silent, the settlers would think he'd turned. There was no right choice left. He stood between two worlds, one that feared him and one that tested him. The girl looked at him, eyes wide with something between fear and hope. "You must choose," she said. Elias glanced toward the oncoming riders, their rifles glinting in the sun. Then he looked back at the silent wall of Apache warriors. For the first time in years, his hands trembled. The test had begun. The wind had shifted again, carrying with it the scent of gun oil and horse sweat. Elias stood frozen on the porch, the weight of two armies pressing down on his chest. On one side, the Apache, their faces painted and unreadable. On the other, the settlers, grim and suspicious, dust rising around them like ghosts. The leader of the settlers, Sheriff Dalton, raised a hand in greeting or warning. His rifle hung at his side, but the men behind him already had theirs ready. "Crane," the sheriff called out. "We saw the smoke from miles off. You all right out here?" Elias hesitated. His voice felt like a fragile thing that could shatter if he used it wrong. "I'm fine," he replied, keeping his tone even. Dalton's gaze flicked past him, toward the ridge. His expression changed the moment he saw the Apache line. "Good God! "You've got company," he muttered. Then louder, "You've been harboring them, haven't you?" Elias took a slow step forward. "I found one girl near death. I gave her water. That's all." "That's all it takes," Dalton snapped. "You think they'll just ride off after that? You think they don't have scouts out here waiting for a signal? They'll burn your ranch, Elias. Then they'll burn ours." The settlers murmured behind him, voices low, uncertain. Fear was a language everyone spoke fluently. Elias's eyes drifted toward Naya, still weak but standing now at the doorway, clutching the porch post. Her expression said what words couldn't: say nothing, do nothing. But silence had a cost too. Dalton stepped closer. "We can't risk it. If they're watching, they'll think we're allies. You have to choose. Crane, are you with us or them?" The words hit harder than a bullet. Elias looked from the sheriff to the ridge, to the endless horizon that seemed suddenly too small for the truth he carried. "I'm not with anyone," he said finally. "Not anymore." Dalton's jaw tightened. "That's not an answer." Before Elias could respond, a single arrow whistled through the air and buried itself in the dirt between them. Not a threat, a warning. The sheriff cursed, raising his rifle, but Elias threw out his arm. "Hold your fire. They're not attacking." For a moment, chaos hung suspended in the air, balanced on the edge of a breath. One twitch, one spark, and the desert would drown in blood. And then stillness again. The Apache did not move. They simply watched. The test, Elias realized, was not about courage. It was about restraint. He lowered his voice. "Go back, Dalton. Tell your men to stay away from this land." "You've lost your damn mind," the sheriff said. But there was fear in his voice now. "They'll kill you." "Maybe," Elias answered. "But not today." Dalton spat into the dust, turned his horse, and rode off. The others followed reluctantly, their eyes still burning holes into Elias's back. When they were gone, the silence returned, heavy and eternal. From the ridge, the Apache watched. The day was not yet over. The judgment had only begun. That night, the sky turned the color of blood. A storm gathered in the distance, thunder rolling across the plains like an army marching unseen. Elias sat by the dying fire, Naya beside him, her face lit by the flickering light. "They think you're a traitor now," she said quietly. Elias gave a short, bitter laugh. "Wouldn't be the first time." She looked at him, studying his profile. The scars that ran from his temple to his jaw. "You were a soldier once." He nodded. "A long time ago. Fought for men who spoke of freedom while taking it from others. I left when I realized we were just painting different names on the same graves." Naya's eyes softened. "Then you understand why they test you. My people have lost too much to trust words." He stared into the flames. "And what happens if I fail?" "Then the fire burns everything," she said simply. The night deepened. From the ridge, faint lights began to glow, small torches rising one by one. Elias counted them silently. 10, 20, 50. They moved in a pattern, deliberate and haunting. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Sending a message," Naya whispered. "To the other camps. They're watching how you stand when the storm comes." Elias leaned back against the porch post, feeling the weight of her words. The storm winds began to howl, scattering sand across the yard. The flames guttered, fighting for air. He closed his eyes and thought of everything the desert had taken. From him, his friends, his faith, his reason to believe that peace could exist between men. Yet here, beside a woman who should have been his enemy, he felt something almost sacred. A faint sound broke through the wind, the cry of a hawk. Naya lifted her head. "It's the sign," she murmured. "They've seen your choice." Elias frowned. "My choice?" "You didn't draw your weapon," she said. "You didn't run." That's what they needed to know. He looked at her, realization dawning slow and heavy. "So what happens now?" Naya's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Now, they decide if you are worthy of their trust." Thunder cracked overhead. Rain began to fall, the first in months, washing the dust from his porch, from his hands, from the girl's torn dress. And as the sky opened, Elias Crane understood something he hadn't in years. Peace was never given. It had to be earned, one heartbeat at a time. The storm passed before dawn, leaving behind a silence thick enough to drown in. The desert smelled of wet dust and sage, a scent that felt almost holy after so many dry months. Elias stood at the edge of his porch, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. In the distance, the ridge was veiled in mist. But he knew they were still there, the watchers, the judges. Naya slept inside, her breathing steady now. The fever had broken, and the color was slowly returning to her face. Elias had barely slept. His mind circled the same questions again and again. What did they want of me? What am I supposed to prove? When the first light touched the horizon, a shadow appeared near the fence line, lone rider, cloaked in gray buckskin. He dismounted and walked forward without a word. His presence radiated quiet power. Elias recognized him from the ridge, the elder who had come down that first morning. Elias waited, heart hammering. The man stopped a few paces away. Between them lay only wet earth and unspoken judgment. The Apache elder lifted his hand, palm open. In it was a small bundle wrapped in deerskin. He placed it on the ground, then stepped back. Elias hesitated before picking it up. Inside lay a piece of charred wood carved with delicate markings, arrows, and a single line cut straight through the center. A sign? Elias asked quietly. The elder nodded once. Tu bahosoni, Esaid, voice deep huston. Naya's weak voice came from the doorway. He says it means water brings balance. The old man looked at her, then at Elias. Balance is the path between fear and anger, Naya translated. He wants to see if you can walk it. Before Elias could speak, the elder turned and mounted his horse again. As he rode away, more riders appeared on the ridge, figures etched against the rising sun. The message was clear. He was to follow. Naya clutched the doorframe. If you go, there is no turning back. Elias looked at her, then at the horizon. I never seem to, he said softly, and started walking. The desert swallowed him as he climbed toward the waiting tribe. Each step felt heavier, the air charged with meaning he didn't yet understand. When he reached the crest, the warriors parted silently, forming a corridor of eyes and spears. At the far end stood the elder, beside a great circle of stones darkened by fire. Elias stopped there, breath catching. This was no battlefield, was an altar, and whatever came next would decide whether he walked away as a friend or not at all. The circle was ancient scorched earth framed by stones, blackened from countless rituals. The wind whispered through them like voices from another time. Elias stepped closer, boots sinking into damp sand. The elder spoke again, his tone grave, measured. Naya's translation drifted across the wind. He says every man carries two fires, one that destroys, one that protects. You must show which burns in you. Elias frowned. How? The elder motioned to a nearby warrior, who brought forward a shallow bowl filled with ash and glowing coals. The heat bit at Elias's skin. He wants you to lift it, Naya said. "Hold it until he tells you to stop." Elias looked down at his hands, scarred and trembling. It was madness, but he understood. Pain was their language of truth. He took a deep breath and reached for the bowl. The metal scorched instantly, searing his palms, but he refused to drop it. Smoke curled upward, wrapping him in its bitter scent. Seconds stretched into minutes. Sweat poured down his face. The world narrowed to heat and heartbeat. When the elder finally raised his hand, Elias let the bowl fall. It hit the earth with a hiss. His palms were blistered, raw, but his gaze never left the old man's eyes. The warriors murmured among themselves. The elder approached, dipped his fingers into the ash, and traced a dark line across Elias's forehead. Naya translated softly, reverently. "He says the desert knows your fire now. You may leave it burning, or let it die." Elias staggered back, breathing hard. For the first time, the circle of warriors lowered their weapons. The elder extended his hand not in challenge, but in respect. When Elias clasped it, the pain in his palms flared. Yet something deeper settled inside him, acceptance, maybe even belonging. Naya stepped forward, eyes glistening. "You've earned their sign," she said. "But it means more than friendship. It means you stand between us and those who would bring war." Elias looked down at his burned hands, then to the vast sky stretching endlessly over the red earth. He realized the test was never about survival, it was about purpose. And as the tribe began to chant softly, their voices mingling with the sigh of the desert wind, Elias Crane understood peace was not found by avoiding fire, but by walking through it and refusing to let it turn you to ash. 3 days passed after the trial. The desert, which had once felt like an enemy, now breathed around Elias like a living thing. The Apache tribe no longer watched him with suspicion. Instead, they observed with quiet respect. Naya walked beside him often, teaching him the names of the winds, the patterns of the stars, the meaning of silence. Each night they sat near the fire as elders told stories of the old world when the rivers still ran deep and the buffalo thundered. Across endless plains, Elias listened, feeling the weight of history pressing against his chest. These weren't just tales. They were wounds disguised as words. He helped mend fences, carried water, and tended to horses with the younger warriors. Slowly, laughter began to replace the stillness. Yet, beneath it all, Elias sensed an unspoken tension. Something was coming. On the 4th morning, while he worked near the corral, he saw a faint column of smoke rising far to the north. His blood turned cold. That was no ritual. Fear, it was a signal. Moments later, Naya ran toward him, breathless. "Settlers," she said. "They've returned. Many horses, guns." Elias's heart sank. He knew Dalton wouldn't stay away forever. He'd seen fear in the man's eyes when he'd left, and fear always returns with fire. By midday, scouts confirmed an armed group was riding toward the valley. The Apache prepared quietly, efficiently. Spears sharpened, arrows stacked, horses watered. The air vibrated with the rhythm of an old bitter song, the one that came before war. Elias walked through the camp, torn between loyalty and dread. Every face he passed reminded him of the impossible truth: if he stayed, he'd be seen as a traitor to his own kind. If he left, he'd betray those who had finally accepted him. Naya stopped him near the edge of camp. "You can still go," she said, though her voice trembled. "No one would stop you." Elias shook his head. "And leave you to face them alone? No, I've seen enough blood to last 2 lifetimes." She looked at him with something like sorrow, something like pride. Then you'll stand between worlds again. You were never meant to belong to one." He smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but maybe that's the only way peace survives between worlds." Thunder rolled in the distance, though the sky was clear. It wasn't a storm. It was the sound of horses. The settlers were coming, and the desert, ancient and impartial, waited to see which fire would burn brighter this time. By dusk, the horizon shimmered with heat and movement. The settlers advanced in a slow, deliberate line, rifles glinting under the fading light. The Apache stood ready across the valley, silent as stone. Elias walked out between them alone. The wind was dry, the kind that carries every sound for miles. Each step he took left a mark in the dust, fragile and temporary. Behind him, the tribe waited. Ahead, the settlers fanned out, weapons steady. The world seemed to hold its breath. Sheriff Dalton rode forward first, his face grim and tired. "Crane," he said, voice echoing. "Didn't think I'd see you alive." Elias stopped a few paces away. "Didn't plan on it," he answered. Dalton's gaze flicked toward the ridge where the Apache watched. "You've chosen your side, then?" Elias shook his head. "There are no sides. Only people who've forgotten what they're fighting for." Dalton's jaw tightened. "You're talking like one of them?" "Maybe they're the only ones still listening," Elias said. His voice was calm, but his heart pounded. Every man behind Dalton shifted, tense fingers brushing triggers. "I can't let this stand," the sheriff muttered. "If we don't act now, they'll push us out of the valley for good." Elias took another step forward. "And if you act now, you'll lose everything you've built. You know what happens when men start shooting out of fear." Dalton hesitated. He looked at the Apache still, watching, waiting, and then back at Elias. "You think you can stop what's coming?" Elias lowered his voice. "Maybe not, but I can keep you from lighting the match." For a long moment, the two men just stared at each other, the air trembling between them. Then Elias bent down, drew a line in the dust with the edge of his boot, and stepped back. "No one crosses this line," he said. "Not them, not you. Anyone who does chooses blood." The sheriff looked down at the mark, then at the man who'd drawn it. The wind swept across the plain, blurring the line almost instantly, but not erasing it. Dalton's rifle lowered an inch. "You're a damn fool, Crane," he said quietly. "Maybe," Elias replied, "but at least I'll die for something that still matters." Behind him, Naya's voice rose softly in the Apache tongue, a prayer, or perhaps a warning carried by the wind. The desert listened. The sun bled into the horizon, and Elias Crane stood in the fading light, one man holding back to worlds that no longer remembered what peace felt like. The air thickened with waiting. The settlers' horses pawed at the ground, restless beneath the weight of their riders' fear. Across the valley, the Apache warriors stood unmoving, their spears reflecting the dying light. Between them, Elias Crane still held the center of the world, the line already half-raced by the wind. No one spoke. Even the desert seemed afraid to breathe. A hawk circled high above, crying once before vanishing into the glare. Elias felt sweat run down his temples. His burned palms throbbed with the rhythm of his heartbeat. He knew this silence could not last forever. Someone would break. It was only a matter of whose courage or whose fear gave out first. He turned slightly, meeting Dalton's eyes. The sheriff looked older than Elias remembered, his face lined by years of dust and doubt. "We don't have to do this," Elias said, voice low but carrying. "You can still walk away." Dalton shook his head. "You think peace comes easy, Crane? You think they'll let us keep our land?" Elias's tone sharpened. "No one ever keeps land out here. It keeps us." The words hung between them like smoke. For a heartbeat, something human flickered in Dalton's eyes. Regret. Maybe recognition, but then a nervous settler shifted behind him. The movement startled a horse. The animal reared, a rifle clattered, and a single shot cracked through the air. The bullet struck the ground near Elias's feet. Dust exploded upward. In an instant, Apache bows lifted, arrows drawn tight. The line trembled on the edge of chaos. Elias threw up his arms. "Stop! No one fires!" His shout cut through the roar of confusion. He moved toward the settlers, hands raised, standing fully between both sides. It was an accident. He yelled, "Hold your fire!" The Apache elder on the ridge lifted his staff, halting his warriors. Across the valley, Dalton barked at his men to lower their rifles. Slowly, unwillingly, the noise ebbed. The gun smoke drifted away, leaving only the rasp of wind and the echo of a single heartbeat. That could have ended everything. Elias turned back toward the tribe, meeting the elder's gaze. Then he looked to Dalton. "This is your last chance," he said hoarsely. "Go home. Tell your men the valley isn't yours to win or lose." For a long moment, the sheriff said nothing. Then he nodded once, barely perceptible. The settlers began to pull back, dust trailing behind their retreat. No victory cry, followed only weary silence. The first stars appeared as the sun sank. Elias stood alone in the center, his shadow stretching across the line that was already fading back into sand. Night claimed the valley, soft and heavy. Fires flickered along the ridge as the Apache prepared their camp. Elias sat apart, his hands wrapped in strips of cloth, his body shaking from exhaustion. Naya approached quietly and knelt beside him, offering a bowl of water. "You stopped them," she said. Her voice carried awe and sadness in equal measure. "For now," he answered. "Peace is never more than a pause between storms." She looked toward the horizon where the settlers had vanished. "They'll come again. I know." He sipped the water, then set the bowl down. "But maybe next time they'll remember what almost happened here and think twice." The elder approached, moving slowly, each step deliberate. In his hand was a necklace made of carved bone and turquoise. He placed it around Elias's neck, the cool weight pressing against his chest. Naya translated softly, "He says the desert saw your heart. You gave water, and you gave fire, and both you used to save life. You are now Kchen-1 who stands between." Elias bowed his head. "Tell him I'll wear it with honor." The elder smiled faintly, then walked away into the darkness. The night wind stirred the ashes of the extinguished fires, scattering them across the plain like gray snow. Elias rose and looked east. The horizon glimmered faintly with the promise of dawn. For the first time in years, he felt no urge to run, no thirst for silence. The land around him was still wild, still cruel, but it was alive, and he was a part of it. Naya stepped beside him. "What will you do now?" He thought for a long time before answering. "Build, grow, keep the line from being drawn again." She smiled. "Then maybe the desert will remember your name." Elias watched as the first light broke over the ridges, painting the wet sand gold. The wind carried the scent of rain and cedar, the sound of distant drums fading with the night. He touched the necklace at his chest, feeling the warmth beneath the cool stone, and whispered into the dawn, "Let this place be more than dust and blood. Let it be home." And as the sun rose over the whispering plains, Elias Crane, soldier, rancher, stranger, became what the desert had always needed. A man who chose peace and dared to keep it alive.